In August 1914, the world watched in disbelief as Europe tumbled into war. It seemed an impossible thing, this sudden eruption of violence after years of relative peace. Yet tumble it did, and Great Britain, bound by duty and treaty, found itself drawn into the vortex. With a mix of patriotic fervor and apprehensive uncertainty, young men from bustling cities, sleepy villages, and rolling countryside answered their nation's call. They signed up, donned khaki uniforms, and became soldiers, ready to face an enemy they barely knew in a conflict that promised to reshape the world. Little did they know the horrors that awaited them, the sacrifices they would make, or the indelible mark they would leave on history. The early days were a whirlwind of training and preparation. The British Army, a professional force far smaller than the conscripted armies of the continent, found itself rapidly expanding with volunteers. These new recruits, many of whom had never left their home counties, let alone seen battle, were transformed into soldiers. They learned to march, to shoot, to dig, and to live under the constant threat of death. All of this was done with a uniquely British sense of duty and, dare we say, good humor. The British Expeditionary Force, a relatively small but highly trained force, was dispatched across the English Channel to meet the German advance. Their mission? To support their French allies and stem the tide of the German war machine. Their first major engagement would be a brutal baptism of fire. The Battle of Mons, fought in the late summer heat of August 1914, pitted the BEF against a much larger German force. The British soldiers, outnumbered but not outfought, inflicted heavy casualties on the advancing Germans. Despite their valor and tactical prowess, the sheer weight of the German numbers began to tell. The BEF, facing encirclement, was forced to make a fighting retreat. This retreat, a harrowing ordeal of constant skirmishes, exhaustion, and dwindling supplies, would test the mettle of even the bravest soldier. Yet, retreat they did, with discipline and determination, buying precious time for their French allies to regroup and for reinforcements to arrive. The retreat from Mons, though a military setback, showcased the tenacity and fighting spirit of the British soldier. It would become a grim prelude to the long and bloody stalemate that would characterize the Western Front. British soldier. The retreat was something else. We were constantly on edge, skirmishing with the enemy, tired to the bone and running low on supplies. But we held on, we kept going. It was tough, but we knew we had to buy time for our allies. The retreat from Mons did not end in disaster. Instead, it led to a crucial counteroffensive alongside their French allies at the Battle of the Marne. This first significant Allied victory of the war halted the German advance and shattered any hopes of a swift victory in the West. It also marked the beginning of a new kind of warfare, one characterized by trenches, machine guns, and artillery barrages that would dominate the Western Front for the next 4 years. From the flat, muddy fields of Flanders to the rolling hills of the Somme, the British Army dug in. They faced a determined enemy, equipped with deadly new weapons and driven by their own ambitions of victory. The battles that followed, names like Ypres, Loos, the Somme, and Passchendaele, would become synonymous with unimaginable carnage and sacrifice. Here, in the trenches, the British soldier endured the unimaginable. They faced relentless shelling, machine gun fire that could cut down men in an instant, and the ever-present threat of poison gas. British officer, media, British officer discussing the change in warfare on the Western Front. The nature of the war had changed. We were no longer fighting in open fields, but were entrenched in a brutal and deadly stalemate. The enemy was relentless, and their new weapons were devastating. We had to adapt, dig in, and hold the line, no matter the cost. Life in the trenches was a world away from the romantic notions of glorious battle. Imagine, if you will, a narrow, muddy ditch, often filled with stagnant water, infested with rats, and reeking of death. This was the daily reality for hundreds of thousands of British soldiers. Days were spent repairing damaged trenches, hauling supplies, and enduring the ever-present threat of sniper fire or artillery bombardment. Nights offered little respite, with patrols into no man's land, the desolate strip of land between the trenches a constant necessity. Sleep, when it came, was often fitful and brief, punctuated by the sounds of distant gunfire or the moans of the wounded. Yet, amidst the mud, the fear, and the death, the British soldier endured. British soldier, the trenches. They were something out of a nightmare. Mud everywhere, rats running around, and the smell. It was awful. But we had no choice. We had to keep going, keep fighting. There was no other way. Section 5. Lions led by donkeys, leadership and innovation. The British Army in World War I has often been characterized by the phrase lions led by donkeys.
This, of course, is a gross oversimplification.
While it is true that some commanders struggled to adapt to the realities of trench warfare, often clinging to outdated tactics that resulted in heavy casualties, to lay the blame solely at their feet would be a disservice to history.
The truth, as always, is far more nuanced.
The war saw the rise of innovative tactics and technologies. The British pioneered the use of tanks, those lumbering behemoths of steel that promised to break the stalemate of the trenches.
They developed sophisticated communication networks, aerial reconnaissance, and artillery barrages that, while devastating, also demonstrated a growing understanding of the technical complexities of modern warfare.
Section 6. Beyond the trenches, the air war and the seas. While the trenches of the Western Front became synonymous with the horrors of World War I, it is crucial to remember that the conflict spanned the globe.
The British, with their proud naval tradition, were engaged in a fierce struggle for control of the seas. From the icy waters of the North Atlantic to the sunny Aegean, British ships battled their German counterparts, protecting vital supply lines and enforcing blockades that would ultimately cripple the German war effort.
The skies, too, became a battleground. The early days of flimsy biplanes, often used for reconnaissance, gave way to a new era of aerial combat. British pilots, such as the legendary Manfred von Richthofen, dueled for supremacy in the skies, their names becoming synonymous with daring and sacrifice. The Royal Flying Corps, later to become the Royal Air Force, played a crucial role in observation, bombing, and increasingly, in challenging German air power. Section 7. Scars of War. The impact on a generation. The guns finally fell silent on November 11, 1918. The armistice, signed in a railway carriage in Compiègne, France, brought an end to the fighting, but the war's true cost would continue to be felt for generations to come.
Millions lay dead, victims of a conflict that had shattered empires and redrawn the map of Europe. For the surviving soldiers, the journey home was only the beginning. They returned to a world forever changed, bearing physical and mental scars that ran deep. Many struggled to readjust to civilian life, haunted by the memories of the trenches, the loss of comrades, and the horrors they had witnessed.
The war had left its mark not only on the battlefields of Europe, but also on the souls of those who had fought there. Section 8. Lest we forget. Remembering the British soldier. The British soldier of World War I is often remembered for his stoicism, his understated courage, and his wry humor, even in the face of unimaginable adversity.
They were ordinary men who, caught in the vortex of extraordinary events, displayed extraordinary resilience and bravery. They came from all walks of life, from the factories of Manchester to the farms of Devon, united in their duty to king and country.
Their stories are etched in the countless memorials that dot the British landscape, from the cenotaphs in bustling city centers to the simple headstones that stand sentinel in quiet village churchyards. Their sacrifices are remembered every year on Remembrance Sunday, a poignant reminder of the human cost of conflict and the debt owed to those who served the poppy. A flower that bloomed amidst the desolation of the battlefields has become an enduring symbol of remembrance, a reminder of the blood that was spilled and the lives that were lost. Section 9. Conclusion. A legacy of courage and sacrifice. The British experience in World War I was one of profound loss, unimaginable hardship, and extraordinary courage. The soldiers who fought in the trenches of the Western Front, flew in the skies above, and sailed the seas faced challenges and endured horrors that are difficult for us to comprehend today. Yet, amidst the mud, the blood, and the fear, they displayed remarkable resilience, camaraderie, and a steadfast determination to see the task through. Their legacy is a complex one, a tapestry woven from valor, sacrifice, and the enduring impact of a conflict that forever changed the world. As we remember the British soldier of World War I, Let us do so with gratitude for their service, admiration for their courage, and a solemn vow to learn from the sacrifices of that generation, striving for a future where such conflicts are consigned to the history books. They were, in the words of Winston Churchill, the best generation, lest we forget.